I've been working on the combat in Noia recently, creating new skills so each class feels unique, and I went back and really studied some of my favorite MMOs that I've played over the years, and I noticed a trend. In most MMOs, equipment didn't matter. Sure, monsters get more difficult to fight, but that's from more difficult mechanics, not simply because their stat numbers went up. All things being equal, if the only thing armor and weapons do in MMOs is make numbers go up, then sadly, they serve no purpose. Equipment is just stats. You get better gear to get bigger numbers, and that doesn't really affect combat. But what if equipment actually changed how you fought? What if crafting wasn't a separate job, but a core part of your combat strategy? What if your gear loadout mattered just as much as your skill rotation? I started looking for games where armor and weapons mattered just as much as skills and spells, and I landed on one of my old favorites, Terraria. In Terraria, equipment is your skill rotation. What weapon you are holding determines how you attack, and your armor and accessories determine how you move and fight. There's just one problem. Terraria isn't an MMO. But could it be? I can't just drop Terraria's equipment design into an MMO and call it good. In Terraria, the player relies on their equipment to provide them with their abilities, where in most MMOs these days, the abilities simply follow the player everywhere they go. Point at any one of the major MMOs these days and you'll see classes with 30 to 40 spells available to the player at all times. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Bosses in both MMOs and Terraria are highly specialized and unique in their own way, and the strategy to take down each boss changes wildly from boss to boss. The difference is MMOs allow players to bring all 40 spells to a fight, where the player in Terraria only has one, whatever the weapon the player is holding at the time. This is how Terraria fosters build diversity. Equipment and weapons can have special effects, not limited to being only stats on a page. By limiting the options to only the held weapon and the equipped armor, Terraria creates a wide range of options at each difficulty tier because the player is not bringing every available option into every fight. And Noia aims to create a hybrid combat system that falls somewhere between these two extremes. First, I need to ensure that each class in Noia feels unique to play. Rather than giving each class 40 spells with overlapping utility, I'm going to give each class 20 spells where each one fulfills a specific role. Each class in Noia will have two unique abilities that reward the player for fulfilling that class's role. The tank in Noia is the sword class. The sword spellbook is filled with abilities tailored to engaging monsters, holding monsters' attention, and withstanding monster attacks. They are rewarded for doing so with the Aegis system. The more a tank is punched in the face, the more Aegis stacks they accumulate, and then they can spend Aegis stacks to do more damage, protect the party, or force the monster's target. Because of the way that Aegis is accumulated, I can already see some psychopath tanks standing in fire to quickly charge Aegis stacks in order to try and blow up a boss as fast as possible. Healers, sorry, but not sorry. Speaking of healers, the staff fulfills the role of healer in Noia, keeping the party alive through the various sources of damage. But as a healer is performing their duties, they are gaining various stacks of either mend or maim. As the player heals their party, they gain stacks of mend, and inversely, as they cast damage spells, they gain stacks of maim. Mend can be expended to deal a good chunk of damage to a target, and maim can be spent to put a reactive buff on a monster that heals anyone nearby. This way, if the tank is hardly taking any damage, the healer can do DPS and toss out a reactive heal to top up the tank's HP, and inversely, if they are spamming heals all day, then they can still throw out a good damage spell every now and then. Speaking of damage, there are two damage classes, the bow and the wand classes. The bow is capable of casting any skill while moving and favors lots of small hits over a long time. The bow has 2 passive buffs that aid in this endeavor. Spectral Arrow automatically fires an additional arrow every 5 skills used, and Momentum builds up a damage multiplier with every skill used that rapidly ticks back down if the player isn't actively shooting. These skills help to keep a consistent stream of damage flowing into the enemy at all times. And inverse to that combat philosophy is the wand. If the bow is the low and slow barbecue, then the wand is cooking with dynamite. The wand fulfills the role of the immovable glass cannon, trading all mobility and survivability for devastating amounts of damage packed into the smallest amount of time possible. With its spell Domain, the wand user is buffed while standing inside the magic circle and can retreat back to said magic circle instantly from anywhere to continue their barrage of damage. Adding Power Overwhelming into the mix allows the wand user to juice their next spell by a stupid amount, and combined with their ability to throw their entire mana bar at a single target via mana burn, the wand user is the closest thing that Noia has to a living war crime. Now, all of these abilities and spells are what make the individual classes feel different to play in Noia, but that really hasn't given any sort of build expression just yet. So now we add a pinch of that Terraria spice. Instead of allowing the player to bring their entire kit to every fight, I'll limit the available hotbar space down to just 10 slots. That's where the real diversity comes from. Each class has spells unique enough to fill their roles, but not enough hotbar slots to bring everything into every fight. So that covers spells, classes, and build diversity, but I'm not done yet. In Noia, armor and weapon choices matter just as much as spell choices. Because of that hard constraint on hotbar slots, players will need to get all the available bonuses that they can, and that's where armor and weapons come into play. Rather than simply having a vertical list of armor and weapons to churn through, I'm adding a healthy smattering of equipment options in each area of the world. Some armor sets might come with defensive buffs, some might have mobility spells, other might forego both of those ideas in favor of damage. The point is, it will be the player's preference on what to choose, and weapons will have the same amount of varieties available. Weapons can come with special spells granted while the player is wielding it, burst, AoE, or sustained damage, all varied in their own ways and all useful in different encounters. So if the player needs all of these different equipment builds for all of these different situations, we need to have a quick way to get it into the player's hands, and that's where the crafting system comes into play. Players can't be bogged down with having to slog through a dozen job levels. They need gear and they need it yesterday. Get the stuff, craft the stuff, and use the stuff. Fast and efficient. Just like in Terraria, the crafting system in Noia doesn't have any crafting levels or wait times or pass-fail RNG. All armor is player crafted, and ingredients can come from varied sources, whether it's mined from the ground, looted from monsters, or rewarded from bosses. Even previous equipment pieces can be ingredients. This means that when you beat a boss, you get new materials and you're crafting and testing new builds within minutes. So if I have all these different maps and dungeons, that means I need a lot of different equipment sets. This is my current armor progression list, with roughly 80 different sets of armor across 50 levels of content. That's about 8 to 10 sets per major zone, each with different bonuses: defensive, offensive, mobility, or utility. Players can pick what fits their playstyle at any given moment. And I plan to have even more weapons available than that to really mix up what the player can bring to the fight in each encounter. So all of that, spell books, limited hotbar space, weapon skills, and crafting, that's how I'm going to blend the best MMOs with the best single player game. You think I can do it? Let me know down in the comments. And that's it for this week. There's actually a lot of skills that I got added to the game, a whole bunch for each individual weapon class. You can probably see them all on the patch notes right now. I've got a bunch of stuff that I still need to do as far as getting some bugs fixed with some of the skills, and I want to get working on all of the quests for the mushroom caves. So, all that being said, I gotta get back to work. I'll see you next time. Bye.